Cocona World is a very different kind of game. I can't even really think of any great direct comparisons for it. Maybe Tower of Duraga crossed with a Barbie game? It is an action-adventure game that was obviously created to appeal to young girls, and it has all of the user hostility of the action-adventure games of 1987. Half the time, players are supposed to be going, "Oh, that's really cute," and taking part in some really shallow activities. But the systems that it's wrapped up in are so poorly explained that most players were unaware that there was a goal, that it was possible to beat this game. The concept here is that you're Cocona, a young witch who lives in the forest by herself and goes about her day-to-day life. The actual goal of the game is to keep her alive long enough that her power will increase, and once she's strong enough, then the forest fairy that grants her magic will show her her future, which naturally involves a wedding dress. As you wander around, hitting the A button makes Cocona shoot her magic, hitting the B button shows what she's thinking about at that moment, and hitting the Start button brings up a menu where you can save your game. This is the only way to save the game. If Cocona dies, then it's game over and back to the title screen. The important things to keep track of for Cocona are all at the top left of the screen. From top to bottom, those are her magic, her mood, her health, and her treasure. When you start the game, all of these have a maximum of 5 points, but with every full day that passes, the maximum value of these increase by 1. Every time you fire off magic, it uses 1/2 of that magic point. So at the start, you can only cast spells 10 times. To deal with that, you have to find the fairy. She recharges Cocona's magic all the way to full. The reason you'd want to shoot off some magic is because there are animals wandering the forest, and some of them are hostile to you. Some, but not all. You can kill all of them, but if you kill a friendly animal, then Cocona's mood drops. And if either her mood or health goes all the way to 0, then it's game over. As a broad rule of thumb, anything that looks friendly is probably not something you want to shoot. One challenge getting around in the early game is that many of the screens randomize their exits. If you're on an empty forest path and there's 4 ways to go, then it's likely that the exits will take you to a random place, including the square that you're already on. Initially, your only option is to just keep retrying until you get spat out in the location you want. But there is a way to deal with it. When you kill an animal, it drops an item. Most of them drop stars, which is just a small amount of treasure. And treasure is used at the various shops in the forest to purchase some kind of food, like cake or eggplant. Other animals can drop more useful power-ups. And it's always the same item dropping from these same animals. Tanukis always drop lamps, and wolves always drop keys. Using the 2 of those together at a location will let Cocona get a treasure, which maxes out her treasure meter. Cats are technically good animals that you're not supposed to hit, but they're the only animal that will drop the fishing rod, which is how you can fish at a certain point. And fishing is performed just by standing there and waiting a while until the fish shows up. Finally, there are Jizos, and when you shoot them, you get a Jizo statue. And carrying one of these around with you makes the exits from the various forest paths consistent. The lamp and Jizo are on a time limit. 1 hour for the lamp, 2 hours for the Jizo. Once that amount of time passes in-game, they just vanish. From time to time, Cocona will stop and tell you that she wants something. It might be a kind of food, or it might be to visit certain locations or do certain tasks. From that point on, her mood will drop slowly until you fulfill that request. Also, her mood and health will decline over time just as you walk around, so you'll want to keep it up anyways. Health has a relatively easy fix. There's a free hospital in the forest. But you have to be at 2 health or less, otherwise they won't do anything for you, and Cocona's mood drops. For food, you have to have the appropriate item in your inventory, then go back to Cocona's house, which is where you start, and sit at the table outside. Then she'll eat, and you're all set. The events that she might want to take part in are a bingo minigame and fortune telling. Technically, you just have to go to the location and walk in, and then you can leave, but you can actually do some stuff there. At bingo, you fill out your card. There's 75 possible numbers, and you have to hit B to rotate through the options. and then it will just call numbers forever until you choose to stop. So this manages to be less exciting than real bingo. For fortune telling, you can get your horoscope, and you can enter any date back to 1 CE. So if you wanted to work out what the horoscope was for Emperor Constantine on the day of the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, well, you can do that. There's one more special function. Going into this building accesses your journal, and here you can save whatever text you want to the disk. I guess you could keep notes on the game here, since it really doesn't seem like you have enough space for an actual journal. To beat the game, you'll have to last until the 6th day. That's when Cocona reaches her full capabilities. Then you have to collect a series of items, including one special hidden item that can be collected from a mermaid. After that, you have to go through the randomized forests in the correct order, so you'll need the Jizo statue as well. And then after you've successfully done that, you can talk to the fairy and get the ending. Interestingly, Cocona World seems to have a small cult following in Japan, or at least enough people who played it as a kid and then commented how confusing they found it. And some people think of it as a proto-Animal Crossing, though personally I don't really see it. I find Cocona World to be interesting, but maybe too annoying to play. The way Cocona moves around is very stiff and slow, and then suddenly if you're pushing in one direction, she'll take off running. And if you put the controller down for a minute, she'll just wander off to do her own thing. It feels weird to control this game, and having only one way to refill your magic, and it's at one point on the map, winds up being really annoying. Though, technically, you don't have to kill a lot of animals. There's also a problem that there just aren't enough activities here. And the ones that are there aren't very good. If there were 10 minigames, and if the action in getting around between them was more interesting, then maybe Cocona World would work. As it stands, I think it's an interesting failed experiment. I don't see anyone wanting to play this one through to the ending these days. It takes 4.5 hours minimum. But you can also see the germ of a good idea here. Maybe with a bit more time in the oven, Cocona World could have been one of those lost diamonds in the rough. But as it stands, it's not really a good time.